Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. Since morning, since last 3 days, we've been attending both combination of virtual as well as in-person events. Everybody's talking about what's happened in the last 2 years, right? I would probably take it back to 2015. Enter a board meeting, and the topic of conversation would be cloud, obviously. And they would be reluctant saying, why should we go to the cloud? And let's fast forward 6 years, 2022, walk into a board meeting. If they're not already on cloud, the first question they ask is, what will it take for me to get to the cloud, right? I was reading a few statistics, and I thought it would be a great starting point for this brilliant discussion. Almost 50% of data in cloud has been in the cloud for only last 1 year, right? We've spoken about cost arbitrage, we've spoken about tech arbitrage in the GCC sectors. And today, we are talking about cloud enabling digital transformation. So look at the maturity curve that we've already achieved from an arbitrage perspective. So let me start with you, Jay. Your initial comments, please.
Thanks, Jaspreet. So let's see that how this enterprise evolution has taken place, right, to the context, right? So we had company, then we opened up these companies in multinational, so these enterprises became multinational enterprises. Then we said that, okay, let us tap to the capabilities of each of these countries and let's create a globally integrated enterprise. So from multinational, we became global enterprise to globally integrated enterprise, right? Then we got a injection of all the new technologies, whether it's cloud, AI, IoT, and now we are talking about edge. So new technologies come in, so we need to relook our business in some form. So we said that, okay, let us create a digital enterprise which is more smarter so that we are able to make differentiation. The moment we make a digital enterprise, subsequently what happens, you are going to get a lot of data because you are going to instrument your field assets, your people, and more data will come. And now we are getting to the evolution of creating what we call as the next AI enterprise, which is more data-enabled and intelligence-driven, right? So if you see over the last 2 years during the COVID, so in a virtual world, we said that, okay, let us have a virtual enterprise because we need to run the business in a virtual way. And we use this technology to run as a virtual enterprise. And when we want to run this virtual enterprise, we need technologies, right? And that's the reason there is a big role of cloud coming into the play. You need to have all your front phase of the sales transactions happening through our platforms. And that is what I strongly believe. Every company, right, whether you want to take a ride share, you have a platform for it. You wanted to take order the food, there is a platform for it. So the front phase of every enterprise is going to be platform driven. And these market making business platforms for all these enterprises need an underlying cloud as a capability. The reason why, sitting on your browser, you should be able to get your compute power, you should be able to get the software power, you should be able to develop solution power, and without people, we can't do anything, right? We can give any amount of money to buy any technologies, right? And all this power on a single superstore is available on cloud, and that's the reason as part of every board, if you want to really bring transformation in the enterprise, create a virtual enterprise which is most intelligent, workflow driven, and primarily all these capabilities are powered through the cloud. And that's the reason it's important from boardroom conversation standpoint.
Wow. At least hearing you talk, I feel that on-prem is dead, but we'll talk about that in the next 20 minutes that we have. Over to you, Mohit, for your initial comments.
Thank you. So I think you rightly said to be on the cloud or not to be on the cloud is not optional. All the companies have to figure out how and why. And that's where the on-prem comes in, the way you were saying it. I do think that Teams and Zoom have kept us alive for the last 3 years. That runs on the cloud, and that's a blessing in disguise. In case that wasn't there, likely, it will be difficult to operate. At the Mahindra Group, we are involved in automobiles, farm and agriculture, finance, logistics, solar energy, real estate, hospitality, and many other businesses. There's only one thing which is common. Our customers have become more digitally savvy than where we are. And hence, the last 2-3 years have been accelerated to focus on customer journeys, mending the broken last miles. employee journeys equally, where for employees, systems are never designed for remote operations. They were never paperless. They were never focused. And they were never designed for experience. So cloud is a must because most companies, have been in a catch-up. Now is the time to recreate new experiences. So our future is now, where the last 2 years, all that has been done. And this year onwards, it's about building the future, which a bit later I'll talk about it. But I think cloud is not optional, whether it's customer-facing, customer journey, or data and AI, like you rightly spoke about, or a modern architecture, or even innovation. And I'll cite some examples across the industry on where we're working on.
Excellent, Mohit. I think a lot of people in the last 2 days again have spoken about customer journeys. Very few have spoken about internal employees and what can we do to enhance their digital experience. The largest university in the world, right? WhatsApp University. I got a forward there and which said, the largest catalyst or the biggest catalyst for digital transformation in the last 2 years has been COVID. Like you rightly said, everything's changed from a digital perspective in 2 years. But excellent points, we'll definitely come back to you. Jai, your initial thoughts, please.
Thank you, Jaspreet. So let me just state upfront that Sabre has been a company which has been around from 1960s. And from a company perspective, we have gone through every technology that has probably come across the space over the last 60 years. And so we go from mainframe all the way open systems, cloud, all of them exist in our company. But the transition to cloud is so important that our company is engaged in a multi-year technology transformation effort. And the reason we are chasing that is because we are looking for speed and maneuverability. As in COVID, all the travel processes changed and we had to react and respond extremely fast. We came up with systems which would allow, let's say, a touchless kiosk, a touchless check-in. That was one example. We also required to inspire trust for our partners. So reliability of our systems, fast response times, and other advantages that go with the cloud. And then we actually also need to innovate at a really faster and faster pace. Though I have to remind you that the airline industry is really highly regulated, yet the airlines and all the agents or all the participants in the travel and hospitality ecosystem tend to want to move at a much faster pace in order to keep their competitive advantage. And so we need to therefore have innovative products with faster time to value, not necessarily faster time to market. And finally, we are also chasing the evolution of our engineering org as a world-class engineering org. And so our engineering practices, which would have supported a mainframe development environment in the past, today need to support a cloud development environment. So all those legacy processes, methods, all have to change. And that is the reason why we are seeking a really fast transition to cloud.
Again, excellent points, talking about agility, moving with the times, also bringing in the entire regulatory aspect, right? Which we are seeing is also changing at a very, very fast pace. While I come back to you later, I still want to talk about the shift from, looking at a mainframe versus enabling it at a cloud and bringing in the entire transformation piece. So now, Mohit, let me start with you. Very diverse industries, right? From agriculture to fintech to manufacturing. How do you bring all of these businesses together from a cloud-first perspective? And what are you doing there from a, enabling the entire digital transformation? Like you rightly said, we were a little late to the party, but we've certainly caught up, if not becoming the leaders.
So I think it's all about the customer. So you have to start with the customer. Not many times technology people think technology is a solution to everything. You have to figure out where the customer is going. So in the last 2 years, through the COVID, we've had 4 blockbuster launches, starting with Thar in 2020 October, which is peak of COVID. All the dealerships were closed, and you had to launch the Thar in the online fashion. And since then, 3 more launches with XUV 700 last year, the Bolero Neo, and Scorpio on Monday. And all 4 launches have been digital launches, where 40% leads are now coming from social and online channels. So the customer has changed. 5 years ago, when we launched the 300, 90% was dealer-oriented, where the whole idea was to get people into dealerships. So you had to deck up the dealership, equip the dealership with coffee and free biscuits and whatever else and manage the queues. Now, in the last 4 launches, there is no focus on dealership. So the customer has changed, and hence technology has to enable it. So how do you enable a scalable technology which can follow up a lead from an inquiry, position a test drive where you want it, when you want it, right? Of the variant you want it at your home, because you're not going to come to a dealership, and then be able to deliver the car on the day you want it. We've not perfected that yet because of supply chain issues. And then the after-sales experience. Similarly, in farm and agriculture, working with the farmers, helping improve the yield of their land, getting better prices for the land. Lots of this is cloud-oriented, where we work on thousands of acres of plots with IoT sensors in the soil, use agronomy data, use weather data, use soil data to be able to tell the farmer on how to irrigate better, go to drip irrigation versus flood irrigation for paddy mainly, use the cloud for detection of disease on the crop. So many similar examples. In finance, we have 10,000 people in the field who are on a motorcycle bank in a box, or bank in a mobile app, which has to work in rural. Our focus is semi-urban and rural banking for Mahindra Finance. And that can only work if you have it running in the cloud in a scalable fashion. Industry 4.0, digital twin, AR, VR for training. So many of these examples in the last 2 years across all our industries, even real estate. So in the peak of COVID, we launched an inventory in Palghar near Bombay. It was completely virtually. We had not even broken ground. The designs were ready. We were able to sell the whole inventory. All 80 apartments were sold within 3-4 days. We launched Mahindra Eden in Bengaluru last week, which is again an AR, VR driven project. I don't know if somebody bought it here. And in 4 days, all apartments were sold. So the customer is ready, we are ready, and we are now recreating end-to-end experience where you can consume a product or service completely in a hybrid manner, where it could start online and convert into physical and then go back to online. Because in the end, the magic is about great products. We make great vehicles, great tractors, but it's also about digital innovation, helping people live better lives, whether they're employees, stakeholders, customers, communities. So all of that is coming together, and cloud is really helping us accelerate a lot of this. And hence, that's what I was trying to say, that it's kind of a multi-stage journey, not necessarily in a sequential fashion, but lots of innovation is available to be untapped in the cloud, whether it's customer 360, AI, or machine vision, computer vision. You just need to use it for the right use case, then it pays back. If you're doing lift and shift movement to the cloud, likely it's going to cost more. That's when it starts going a bit south. So your reason to be on the cloud has to be right.
Oh, so I'm surprised. You're saying because everybody is moving to the cloud, I should not move to the cloud. I should have a use case. Thank you for bringing that out.
Just to add also.
Yeah, please. Jay.
Just to add, right? Since we're talking about the diverse industry, see what is the changes happen in the industry. If you see an automobile company, today they are not an automobile company. They want to reposition themselves as a mobility platform company. You go to an engine manufacturer, they are not going to charge for the engines. For the number of hours they're engaged to the aircraft they fly, they are charging by power by hour. So they want to convert into an as a service model. If you go to an healthcare insurance provider, they're not telling I only do the insurance process. I want to be an end-to-end healthcare solutions provider, right? And if you go to an elevator company, they say that I'm not about selling elevators. I'm doing people movement as a service, right? If you go into a banking industry, nobody is going to the branch. They are actually opening up a mobile, and it is all platformized. We are the superstore of all needs for you, right from the loans or education, or if you want to buy any home appliances, everything. It is a retail superstore of all the personal needs, right? So all of these business transformations that has happened across the industry boundaries also have blurred across the board, right? And that's where, if we want to accelerate this business transformation, we need the firepower of the technology and the tools, and that's where the cloud and AI will play a larger role across the sectors.
Super. We need the horsepower of AI and cloud going forward. But history was my favorite subject, right? So I come to you, Jay. You spoke initially about mainframes, right? I'm sure there will be a lot of GCCs who've set up last 10 years. Some would be working with their parents on legacy applications, right? Legacy infrastructure. Do you think cloud will have a play there? And what was your experience in this entire cloud digital transformation journey?
So the cloud will definitely have a play in the business in delivering services to the customers. However, for companies which have had a long history and have worked in legacy technologies like mainframes and so on, there are certain key factors or key decisions that one needs to make. For example, if we have to assess all the variables that are in the situation, for example, in our case, we have a very diverse infrastructure. We have aging systems. We have a plethora of applications. We work with airlines, with hotels, we have a GDS. And also, as I called out a little bit before, we have let's say, legacy mindset and processes that used to develop applications for the mainframe. They have now to adapt to newer ways of working. Classic example, which many folks here would know, in the cloud, you have a SRE, you have a DevOps, you have new teams coming up which carry out new roles. And so we have to be alert to all that, number one. And number two, in our company, which I think we just touched upon even outside, the entire transformation needs to be driven from the top. Our CEO, he has a council. Then we have an executive council, and then we have a steering committee, and we have 2 project management offices. So the entire leadership is deeply embedded in the process of transformation, which is a very key element for us. Now, we also have to put in place bricks or building blocks to make sure that we succeed in this. So if you look at our development environment, coming down a little lower, you have to have elements which aid the developer in being able to seamlessly transition from whatever his environment was, open systems, mainframes, and so on, to the cloud environment. And in order to do this, you have to set up various elements, and I will call out just a few. For example, you could be providing CI/CD as a service, CI/CD. You could have reusable base libraries. You have to set up a monorepo and a build system which runs on top of the monorepo. You have to make sure your developer is able to do a one-click installation of the entire environment into his laptop, which in the past he would have to install from different sources, get the permissions, and so on. So right from the micro to the macro, to the CEO and his E-team, everybody has to be engaged in the transition. If that is not there, it is going to be a pretty tough journey, that I could say.
Excellent point. I think talk to a lot of practitioners, and I think this is one common feeling that everybody shares, that unlike some of the initiatives which could be driven at a very low level, cloud digital adoption is something which is everybody in the organization has a role to play, whether it's the CEO or whether it's the last level of employee in the organization. So I'll come to you, Jay. Any advice that you would want to give to people sitting in this room who wish to start or are taking few baby steps on their digital transformation journey using a cloud?
Okay. So if you say, let's take care of some of the basic understanding about accelerating this transformation story, right? And we said that cloud is fundamental for this transformation, and AI and software is required for us to drive this transformation. So one area is, the first one is the architectural challenge, right? So by default, statistically, 97% of the enterprises have gone more than one public cloud, which means what? We give birth to new clouds, clouds over clouds, multi-clouds, because we see that something good in the store, so we want to take that store. Some good product is there in this cloud, so we try to do it, right? So one area to focus for us to view is that do this architectural review of the landscape, which is aligned to what from a business transformation or the digital transformation standpoint, we need to look at it. So this is one area to look through, right? So if we know that, because the architecture is like your city transportation network, right? So as you need to make every people to travel through this network, and there is going to be various stops till the last mile connected to the villages, and that's how the users are going to be across various things, right? Right internal to the enterprise, the developers who develop the products, till actually these platforms being utilized by the customers, then to the across all the levels. So creating this network of capabilities, both with skills as well as the technology, is important for us more from an architectural challenge standpoint, which we need to look through, right? The second important area we need to look through is about people. We can buy any amount of technology with money, but we need people and the culture. So how do we create this cloud center of excellence, right? Capabilities, tools, so that we need people to understand this and adopt it, right? Because it is all the same, but depending upon the industry context or to your context, what change you want to bring, we need to drive that. And that's where the center of excellence comes into the play. And empowerment of people to experiment, ideate freely, develop solutions so that they'll be able to know that the real value of it. So this is on the people side dimension. As well as the operations, because we need to run successful business means we need to ensure 24/7 those applications or platforms are being available. And we need to address that part. So this is the third part, operations strategy. The fourth important area we need to look through is around the security. Because the surface of attack will move beyond your enterprise from your private environment or your data center to multiple clouds. The kind of dedicated effort what we put for our on-prem environment, we also need to create a similar security posture across the different cloud environment. And the last one is, and we need to take care of that aspect. The last important point from thinking how do we set it is the ecosystem. Because we are going to have multiple cloud providers, there is going to be separate bill associated with that, right? And we need to take care of the FinOps associated from a cloud standpoint, right? And that's the reason if you're able to marry the FinOps along with AIOps in terms of ensuring whatever we do, and that's the topic here, optimal cloud consumption. So we need to address also the cost on the financial side. And the last important point is the ecosystem part of it, right? Everybody comes with their capabilities. Everyone has their own set of biases to brew the butter. So create a kind of a table of where there is a multilateral ecosystems to solve those digital transformation programs. So with that, I would say hybrid cloud platform as a strategy and see through architecture, people, operations, financial, as well as the ecosystem, security, as a way to think through to shape up your cloud strategy.
So if I could just add, Jay, when you move to the cloud, there are two key elements. One is which workloads will actually move to the cloud. And second, all the cloud service providers insist that we understand the cost model very well, because people think they're going to get cost savings. And in reality, that's not the case in the initial stages.
You need to look at the ROI.
Absolutely. And more importantly, when you actually run in the cloud, your cost may actually exceed your existing costs.
Absolutely.
So both of these elements are really very key.
So statistically, that is proven also. 37% of the enterprises, right, where they started cloud initiatives thinking that they are going to get cost savings, that actually at the initial stages they have seen a cost. Well, I think that's a
So I think it's a L-shaped curve.
Yeah, so similar point. I think focusing on a cloud native architecture in which it's hard work because you'll have to go app by app and rewrite the apps to be using the cloud native architecture. That's probably what saves you money because then you can use open source. You don't need to be licensed on heavy licensing on-prem. So that's one. Then I think zero trust architecture, Jay already talked about.
Yep.
With data privacy getting stronger and cybersecurity, attempts and lots of ransomware happening. You have to really focus on security. And third is around automation. It'll be silly to go to the cloud and still have a manual release management cadence or doing manual testing. Because if you're using cloud only as a host, you may end up with a lipstick agile, as I call it. It's only agile to look at, but it's really waterfall. So you have to go to CI/CD really and drive automation.
Sure.
If you do that well, then surely your money comes out in the longer run.
So we've discussed about money coming out, ROI, security, and I think Jay very beautifully put 10 bullet points. I don't remember all of them. Thank you. On how should a digital transformation happen. Mohit, one last question to you, and I think very pertinent to the entire audience sitting here. We briefly touched on cloud adoption. You run multiple businesses. Adoption in each of the business would be very, very different, right? If you look at the farm agri business, the adoption would be very different to a fintech. How do you marry? How do you bring all of these together? And what's your mantra of success, really?
So you got to win. You got to win in each business. And if the cloud helps you win, then is the right one to adopt. And when I say win, I actually mean Mahindra Racing. So we have a racing team in the UK. And this morning we announced that we're bringing Formula E racing to Hyderabad on 11th February 2023, which is a big win for India and big win for Hyderabad. So in the racing team for the last 2 years, I've been working with the racing team and the hyperscalers, trying to save 1 second from each lap. as the only problem statement given to me by the race CEO. Still not done. Right?
Wow.
So
So
but
now-
it's a winning use case where if you can shave off a minute, shave off a second from each lap, it's 50-lap race, then you'll probably win. We are in the top 3-4 teams. And there's similar examples in all the industries. So it has to align to the CEO goal and to the product we're trying to go after. Only then it makes sense.
And the business strategy, right? Because it eventually leads to business strategy.
Absolutely.
Closing
So
remarks from you.
You have to
Jay.
win the race.
To win the race, yeah.
You have to win the race.
Closing remarks from you, Jay.
Just taking off from what Mohit so eloquently said, most people think cloud is a destination, but I think it's actually an operating model. It's not a destination. You have machines which have just moved to a common availability. And so therefore, you will be able to monitor, manage, and drive scale, security, costs, and maybe even data availability, no matter wherever you are running the application in the cloud space. So when people think of it as a destination, then there are chances that your goal may not be accurate. If you are aware and you're looking at it as an operating model, and therefore you use a mix of what Jay said, the public cloud, the private cloud, therefore the hybrid cloud, and perhaps not move some workloads into the cloud at all, because that doesn't make any sense, then there is a chance that you would have made an intelligent transition to the cloud.
Wow, you're also talking about not moving to the cloud. I learned something new today. Closing remarks from you, Jai.
So since the topic is around the optimal cloud strategy for driving digital transformation, it is always wonderful. My closing remarks is that, right, we are in a proud moment as being as one of the members for the GCC, right? And we can be proud of so many things, right? This was an industry which was $15 billion export service from GCC in 2015. Now we're almost like $38.5 billion, right? As per the last NASSCOM report. And now in next 3 years, we are going to be 1% of the GDP, right? All great transformation program, right, across the world is all being driven from this GCCs, which is another good feeling about that we are actually bringing direct business impact, which is revenue generating, which is building more competitive edge for this enterprise. And third important point, which I always believe is that anything on digital, emerging technologies, and all the new jargons which we keep giving birth, right? Finally, it is a people that is important, and the culture of innovation which we create in the enterprise plays a larger role in accelerating the speed of innovation. And my closing remarks is that let's build people and capability and culture of innovation, and that's what we need to bring a lot of thoughts around it. Thank you.
Thank you. Never would I thought that I would be ending a cloud session with emphasis on people and culture. Thank you so much, my fellow panelists, whether it's looking to win the first race happening in Hyderabad next year, to looking at the entire transformation from legacy systems, to actually looking at the entire ecosystem of digital transformation. Please give it up for my superb fellow panelists. Thank you.